Commissioners. We'll begin, like we do with all meetings, with public comment on non-agenda items. If there's a member of the public wishing to speak to an item that is not on our agenda, go ahead and come forward in the room. Seeing none, I'll close public comment, and we're going to start with our first work session, which is a town and gown update. Tracy Young, thank you for taking time to be here. And you'll just push the button until the green light's on, and the floor is yours. Sorry, City Clerk, I just moved a little too fast through the first part, I guess.
Totally fine. Good evening. Thank you guys for inviting me and letting me be here to talk about Town Gown. I'm going to just do a really quick presentation for you guys just to talk about what we've been up to this last year. Some of my members are in the room. And this presentation is actually the presentation that we did in Maryland at College Park this summer at the International Town Gown Association. So it might feel like, why do I need to know this information? But I wanted to share with you guys what we've been up to, and this was part of it. This was a presentation we did at an international conference. So one of the things that we talk about with International Town Gown Association is the uniqueness of Laramie. We've been working towards town gown initiatives and just started working with the International Town Gown more closely in the last couple of years. And so I did this slide because, first of all, when I say Laramie, Wyoming, not everybody knows where Laramie is, or Wyoming in the big scheme of things. So I had to joke that when you say Laramie, I've had people say Miami. No, Laramie, Wyoming. And so this is, and one of the unique things about us is the University, LCCC, and WyoTech. So at the International Town Gown Association, a lot of people were surprised by that. That a community the size of us has 3 higher ed institutions within its boundaries. So Laramie Town Gown Association, town and gown. So it's exactly that, how the town of Laramie, the community of Laramie, works with our gown, which is our higher ed institutions in our community. So it goes clear back to 2015. Lena Newland and I used to work on an annual conference together around mental health with the university. And we invited Colorado State University to come speak. They had been a few years into their town gown community liaison position and wanted to share, they were sharing with other universities what they were up to. They have a position where it's part paid for by the city and part paid for by CSU. And they do all kinds of different programming together. Students will take a freshman class around city civics, public works, how the city works, things like that, and vice versa on campus, things that pertain to CSU. And that's all coordinated by their community liaison. But she talked a lot about their programming, the law enforcement piece. They'd had some really big issues with big parties after big wins in Fort Collins, things like that. Some of the same things we were seeing here in Laramie. And so we started talking, we pulled a group together, and truly from 2016 to 22, we were really just meeting to meet, trying to figure out what this meant, how to get involved. Didn't always know if we had the right stakeholders at the table. And so in 2022, though, just before Chief Stalder retired, he called me and said, we got to get this thing going again. What do we need to do? And so we pulled the partners back together and started talking. And the big thing that changed is that we approached the International Town Gown Association and asked if they would do like technical assistance for us, like come and help us really move to that next level. They offer what's called a certificate program where it's a whole day where you learn about different topics around town gown issues, communities that have been successful. So we asked them if they would do that with us just as a community. We didn't want to take a day to do that before the conference. That's typically when it is. We were hoping to do it as a collective group here in our own community together so we could really do some strategic planning. And my persistence paid off. This is directly from the International Town Gown. They said a proactive approach, but really I pestered them for a couple months before they actually said yes. They'd never actually done anything like this. this. They had never provided TA to their communities. They didn't, they just did the certificate program. They had lots of trainers in their back pocket that did the training for them, but they had never done anything like this. And I happen to know the executive director and had worked with her in the past on some other projects in another capacity, and I just kept bugging her, and she said, fine, what is your idea? It was sort of an exasperated, okay, we'll do this. And so that's kind of where we headed. But the first thing they did for us was they sent this quiz out to some of our stakeholders. And I should let you know that Sharon Cumby, Sue, I have Jennifer Nuhr, I have Chief, they're all a part of the town gown. But we also have Sheriff Appelhans, Chief Holland from the university, we have somebody from LCCC and Wyotech, we have prevention services involved. So we have a really great group of stakeholders that are part of our steering committee. And these were the topics that were most important to us. So these are the one. They did a little survey of just our stakeholders and wanted to know what we were most invested in and what we wanted to learn about. All of these topics are topics that they offer within their certificate program, and so we ended up doing these 5. And so the way we did this was for 5 weeks, we did a Zoom, and it was a half day, so a couple of hours of topic, like us learning, and then it was a couple hours of talking with the presenters that were experts in these areas, along with the community. So we all sat in a room together, they were on Zoom, and then we had a couple hours to talk about how this would pertain to our community and how this would work in our community. And then they came out here and spent an entire day with us, 2 of their trainers. Greg McDaniel is the city manager in Missouri. I can't remember the town. It's a small town, about the size of Laramie. And then Randall Edward is an executive at a university in New York, a higher up in the admin, and has been with several universities. So that was their expertise. We had both sides of it. So these were the things that we wanted to learn. We really wanted to establish a robust Laramie Town Gown Advisory Board, update our SWOT analysis, which is something we had done a couple years ago, and then develop a detailed action plan for early town gown initiatives. And we did just that. And I just highlighted some of our strengths and weaknesses here. I really love the strengths, our close-knit community. All the people I've worked with for years. I've done prevention in Laramie for about 20 years in different realms. But we also talked about it just seemed like our law enforcement was working really well together right now, and we just had really great synergy going on, so it was sort of perfect timing. Weaknesses, I think these are in most communities, but we all felt like in the past there was some territorial feelings, negative community attitudes both ways, towards our higher ed towards our community. But we also had lots of opportunities. Strengthening our connections was a huge one. We really wanted to bring LCCC in, and they're really excited about this opportunity. They weren't sure how they fit. They hadn't always been really active in this, but they're really excited about this opportunity to get more involved. And then of course, one of our weaknesses was housing, but of course we all know that. That's been around forever. And then threats, really just leadership turnover. We do have quite a bit of turnover in our community, and just how do we deal with that? How do we keep moving forward and not get stuck because we have leadership turnover? And really, some of it is media coverage, but I think all of us were talking about how social media does it this way. Traditional media isn't totally existent, so that we can get them on our side. It just is different. So that was just one of our threats. And there was a million other, we spent about 2 hours on our SWOT analysis and really enjoyed the time to really talk through some of these issues. And then, so the next things were create an advisory board, which we've done, a vision statement, we've done that, and then we set up tasks for our subcommittees. So here's our executive committee. When we talk about an executive committee, it's that higher level, and we're not quite there yet. We know the people that we want involved. I've actually talked to President Seidel about this before. Eventually, we'd like to have one annual meeting where we have the trustees all of you, the president of the university, the president of LCCC, the president of WyoTech, all in a room talking about the things we've done over the last year. We're not quite there yet. So our goal for this year was just getting a steering committee moving forward along with subcommittees. So you can see there, our steering committee is all of those people that are part of the subcommittees. And we've met about 3 times. We did get a mission vision done, and we're working in subcommittees. So we're meeting every other month with talking about what we're doing in our subcommittees. Transportation and safety, we realized it sounds like all of our law enforcement have ideas, but it takes money. We're not there yet. We don't have money yet. That's just for Town Gown. We are in the process of writing a grant. We're hoping to be able to fund some of our own projects and also fund a liaison position, a community liaison position. House and neighborhood relations. So housing and neighborhood, we decided to flip those a little bit because when we got to economic development, we decided we're going to join the other groups that are talking about housing in our community. But neighborhood relations, we're going to work with the university. They have a new group called Pokes for Community Resources, and so we're going to meet with them this week, and they're going to become a part of this neighborhood relations, so we can start talking about how we integrate our community, our students into the community from all of our institutions, and how we can get our community members to embrace our students a little bit better. That's sort of the goal of that committee. Prevention is Andrew Terrell and Jennifer from the Wellness Center, and they're working on exactly that, different prevention areas, substance misuse, suicide, mental health, sexual assault, and other prevention areas as needed. And they're working on lots of stuff. It would take a while to talk about all the things they're doing, but they're working on a lot of things together. And then Sharon and I have been working on, along with Janine, have been working on economic development. And like I said, we do not have dollars to do projects right now. We're trying to fill in the gaps and figure out where we can support other committees. Laramie likes meetings, and Laramie likes committees. So there's lots of people talking about a lot of the same things. So what we're finding is that we're just trying to figure out where the gaps are, and if this is something that we can fill in those gaps. And then, so, take that. And this is our vision statement. We decided this was just a very simple way to talk about what we're doing. It may change, and it may be something totally different in a year, but this is really what we wanted to accomplish this next year. And then this last slide, this is the group on here that all went to International Town Gown Association. We all presented together at the International Town Gown Conference in College Park, and it was probably one of the most well-attended breakouts they had had, and we could have talked for probably another hour. We had 90 minutes, and we had to kick people out of the room for the next presentation. So people were very invested. Actually, next week, there's a couple of universities that I'm speaking with the International Town Gown Association because they want to do this same process. And so we're sort of helping them sell this new process that they're going through, and they helped us really sort of move to that next level. And that's all I have for you guys. Do you guys have questions, comments, thoughts?
Sure, yeah, thank you, Tracy. Councilors and commissioners, questions? Just keep spinning in my chair. Okay. All right. Thank you for the update. We sure appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. Folks, if we don't have any more, if there's any, I guess I'm going to go to the public and provide a chance for folks to speak if they would like from the public. Go ahead and come forward in the room or raise your hand on Zoom if you have a comment on this work session. Please. You know the drill. We'll just need your name. You'll have 3 minutes. I don't get to tell you that very
Christopher Stratton, Laramie Community, or Laramie 24/7, 1564 North 6th Street, Laramie, Wyoming. Comments towards the university that I would love to make is that the inclusion of the LGBT community should be a priority, and it is a disgrace to the Laramie group, the actions that were taken the other day and the forfeiture of the volleyball meet. there's community, and we should be part of community. The university should be part of community. The town and gown needs to look into that. We have removed everything and went towards a more MAGA/Christian extremist bit to campus, and it's a very sad and horrible thing that we're seeing today. And that's coming from the media, and a good end of how the media will be presenting the university in light of the current events. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stein. Any other members of the public wishing to speak to the council on this work session? Mr. Glass, please. You know the drill. We'll need your name. You'll have 3 minutes. And can you push the button for me first? Thanks.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, commissioners, members of council, members of the commission. My name is Brett Glass, and well, the only comment I wanted to make after hearing the town and gown presentation is that, and I have, in my experience, and this is something I think we need to work on, the university is becoming increasingly insular with respect to the city of Laramie and the county. I was on campus visiting the student union, and I noticed that something was missing. It used to be that there was exactly one place on the university campus where a business or a community group could post information about an event, or post something like a notice of, say, an apartment for rent. There used to be one bulletin board in the entire campus where you could do that. That was gone when I went to the union. There is now literally no place where one can post a poster or a sheet of paper or a notice advertising anything that goes on off of campus. And there is no other place elsewhere on campus where you can do this. If you try, it's immediately taken down. This is a shame. We really need to be able to communicate better between on-campus and off-campus groups, and we need to be able to invite people who are on campus to come off campus and participate in other things. It's not happening. I don't understand why we're not going the other way. But this is something which I'd like to see. I'd like to see us work on as a community. It's very unfortunate. I've resorted to doing things like trying to advertise in the branding iron, but people are reading that less and less because they're on their phones or going to Facebook. It seems that we're being more isolated, and we're being more isolated physically too. 15th Street is closed, so now there's another barrier between off campus and on campus. There's going to be a big roundabout there, which is going to deter traffic from coming through. Again, it feels as if we're building a wall between the two communities. I'd really like to encourage everybody, representatives of the university and government officials, to please try to turn this trend around, because I think we can do much more if we're united as a community and we have more communication rather than less. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glass, for taking time to be here. Any other member of the public wish to speak to this work session? Seeing none, I'll close this work session. Thank you again, Tracy. We'll go ahead and hop into our next, which is the update from President Seidel. Come on forward. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mayor Harrington, and good evening, everybody. Great to see you all. Always pleased to be here. And I also, on the comments that were just made, if they would like to come back up and have a comment with me later, I'd be happy to address it. Just wanted to say. I just want to start by thanking everybody for everything you do to make Laramie such a great place to live. And I think you know, I mean it very genuinely. Gabrielle and I love it here, and we do everything we can to help recruit people. We spread the word. I found just for comparison, my family generally did not want to visit me in Champaign, Illinois, but they're happy to come to Laramie. There's so much to do here. So anyway, we really love it here. I want to thank Tracy also for re-energizing the whole town gown effort. I think a lot of good things will come out of that, and really want to thank you for that, and love to follow up with you about it afterwards. I'd like to, maybe before I get into the update, I want to say a couple words about the transition of Provost Carmen. So I think most of you will have known Kevin in his role as provost. He's returning to the faculty in the College of Agriculture, Life Sciences, and Natural Resources. And I just wanted to say he has done an enormous amount to help advance the university, and I really appreciate him, and so does the whole campus, I think, genuinely so. Among other things that he's done in the last few years, he focused a lot on student success, and he's had a lot of impact there. We have improved our first year to second year retention rate year by year from 75% to 79%. That 4% is having an incredible impact on a couple hundred of kids' lives, I would say, something like that on an annual basis, and that's just terrific. We keep trying to do that, and we'll increase our retention rate. It helps with our tuition revenues and just many, many good things. He helped us achieve what's called Carnegie Classification for Community Engagement, kind of to the point that we were just hearing about, and I'm fully committed to making sure the university is as connected to campus as possible, and I mean to a town as possible. And when if I hear about things where we need to make an improvement, I'm eager to see if I can address them. But anyway, so generally we now have national recognition for that. We also now have 9 fully online degree programs, and we, thanks to Kevin's work, we hired a vice provost for online education, and I think it's just the beginning of our attempt to try to have more ability to meet community need across the whole state. And so those are just a few examples. I could go on for a long time on this, but I wanted to say that. So I am now working hard to find a replacement. I expect to take an interim candidate to the board next week, and I think I'll be ready for it by then. I'm not ready for it quite yet, but then most likely we'll carry out a national search at some point going forward. So anyway, we're working hard to make sure we don't lose any steam. I was asked by some savvy students, actually. I went and had a town hall meeting with the students, and they said, when I was a student, I wouldn't have known what a provost was. They not only know what a provost was, but they knew his key focus for them, at least, was student success, and wondered if there was any change in direction. And I'm like, absolutely not. So that's the same on everything we're working on. So just wanted to say that for sure. Okay, University of Wyoming, state of the university, kind of key points from the address I gave to campus a few weeks ago. One thing we're very concerned about, as all universities are at a national level, is enrollment. There are trends of a downtick in the number of students, and also there's a loss of faith in higher education across the whole country. So it's not a Wyoming-specific thing. It's not specific to the university here. But we're actually holding steady in face of national challenges like this. We're down very slightly, 0.9% this year in terms of total enrollment. And we have this year total at there's a special day, I forget the name of it, like Enrollment Day or something, Census Day. We have 10,813 students in total, including graduate students. Speaking of grad students, graduate enrollment is up, and I think that's very important. It's one of our priorities, growing graduate enrollment. And one thing that's different about graduate students is they're old enough and to go down and legally drink and participate in things. They tend to have a little bit more ability to go in and kind of frequent downtown offerings. And so I think that might help a little bit. So, and we're working hard to encourage all of that the best we can. The national context, as I mentioned before, in quantitative terms now, there's 11% decline in college students nationwide. In the state of Wyoming, it turns out the counties where most of our students come from are down about 7% in terms of the number, just the raw number of students. Community college enrollment is down significantly over the last couple decades, 15 years actually, and that means since so many of our students come from community colleges and transfers, that'll be a challenge for us. But we're working on every aspect of this, and in particular, we are developing much closer relationships with all the community colleges, and in particular with LCCC, we just signed an agreement to do what we call co-admission and co-advising. So if a student comes comes to LCCC and they know that they want to come to UW, we can admit them right away. Now we don't do it for every blanket admission, but we're doing it by major so that we know that we have the right advising on our side. So we will admit them and then provide them with advisors that co-advise with the advising staff from LCCC. And that means that students should have a much clearer idea about what their pathway is to the university, that we expect it'll increase student success for the transfers as well. And we're working on doing this with every community college. So right now, LCCC is the first one. We're doing that. I thought I'd say maybe just a little more about loss of faith in higher education, because it is really a national problem. And I learned this summer that one of the key factors in this is that 52% of graduates of universities across the country, so just on average, 52% get a job that doesn't require their college degree. And that's a pretty bad situation, especially when students are getting into tens of thousands or even more in debt. And so they wonder, why did they do that? And so it turns out the most important single factor in getting a job that requires your college degree is having one paid internship with the company. And it's not a small factor. It's 50% increase in your likelihood of getting a job that requires your degree. So the recommendation is make sure that every student has an opportunity to do a paid internship. So this has now turned into just an incredible priority for the university. Everywhere I go, I was in Casper yesterday, met with the Rotary Club and told them the same thing. We're going to need help trying to find the organized business communities and others, the city of Laramie and so on, to make sure we can organize more internships. And so we are setting up at the university multiple offices, one for corporate and strategic partnerships. Some of you have probably met Curtis Biggs or Angela Verploeg. They're working very hard on building up the machinery to organize this, not just professor by professor, but across the whole university. And then also we have what we call experiential learning activity. Nevin Aiken, who's a professor here, has taken that on to coordinate across the whole university opportunities for students to do things outside the classroom. So it could be internships, it could be study abroad, it could be research experience for undergraduates, and all kinds of things that we can do. And so we're working on putting all of that in place. Another thing we're doing is not just trying to find companies or organizations that want internships, so we're going to bring them here as well. So I hope you know about the Safran arrangement that we have. It's a French aerospace company, and by good fortune, we had some personal connections with the CEO of the company, and so we have an agreement with them for them to hire as many as 250 staff in the next 3 years. And they'd like to go beyond that. So, and this happens to be around areas like software development, artificial intelligence, and so on. So we have to also make sure that our School of Computing and our electrical engineering and computer science departments and others are geared up to supply students like that. But so that's just one example where I think we hit a home run. If we can find places for them to live. And as you know, we're also wanting to work with you every way we can around the housing issues that we have in town here, which is, again, another nationwide problem, but we're working on it. Now, we have a longer-term goal of not just having like one company come here or one company partner with us there, but to create a research park, which would be some locations right adjacent to the university. Could be around Cirrus Sky. Is it Cirrus Sky? That's what it's called. Yeah, Cirrus Sky, or around where the High Bay Center is. There are a number of sites that we're looking at where we can have some spaces for companies to have some representatives just right next to campus. And so I used to oversee a research park like that in Champaign, Urbana, and it actually has, I think it has now 19 buildings in it. So that's a much bigger campus, but not so much a bigger town. It's only, Champaign has 70,000 people, Urbana has 40,000 people, so it's several times of our community size. But we're in the very early ideation phases of this. We'll, of course, if we get beyond the point where it's like a PowerPoint point, and maybe we have some real ideas about building it out. We'll want to make sure we work with you on this. But I think it's realistic for us to do this given the funding we received a couple years ago to help inject some additional energy into the engineering college, what's called Tier 1 engineering. So we'll have more faculty, we should have more students, and we should have more ability to support corporate partnerships there. So that's just something we'll work on together, but it's something that I have in mind to try to do. A couple of other just kind of miscellaneous efforts. The Worth Initiative that I think you all know about that Dan McCoy leads, it's called the Wyoming Outdoor Recreation, Tourism, and Hospitality Initiative. We have turned it from an initiative that sounds like we're trying to get something started to an institute. This has just happened, I think, on Monday. So small change. Dan was the interim director. He is now the director. So we're trying to make sure people know it's for real, it's long-term. We've identified funding for it, and we have some exciting announcements about that. Stay tuned. I won't say more, but it's getting some energy, and I hope it can help support growth of tourism and hospitality in Laramie as well as across the whole state. I did talk about previously to you all about this innovation course, and the idea is, like, let's say the housing problems that all communities are facing in Wyoming now. Can we help come up with solutions? And there was a course that Chris Rothfuss taught last spring in the Honors College, and I know that was, he focused on that in part. So that course is going to be expanded more and more on whatever topics are of interest, and so it could be to companies. Again, we might have a conversation, what would you like us to look at, and can we be more targeted at providing solutions? And then maybe even, for example, the students and the faculty, so they can come from business, they can come from engineering, they can come from the arts and humanities, and best of all, they can come together in teams to address these and come up with ideas. And then maybe the next step would be, we'll have, after their ideas are finalized, we can have like a sort of a meeting with you all, and you could be like the jury to sort of help critique and maybe extend and say, hey, those are some great ideas. Let's see if we can run with some of those. So I'm excited about trying to do that. We are continuing this year the Live in Laramie program with music downtown. It always happened that I had something else I had to do, is by the fact it's my top thing I want to go do. But so this year I promised to be down there, but we're excited about continuing it this year. I hope you found it valuable, and so we'll continue to energize that. We have these two things that are going into what we call university studies program. So trying to formalize the requirements for students to pick up two additional things beyond what they normally do now. One of them is experiential learning, as I mentioned before. So we want every student to be required to have some kind of an experiential learning activity. And so that should mean that students are not just like interested, they'll be even more motivated because they'll have to do it. And so maybe we'll have some more opportunities for students to work in downtown here or with city council or mayor's office and so on. And the other one is digital skills. So we're putting in some requirements, not quite baked yet, but around artificial intelligence, computing skills, software development for every single major. So that means an English major or a business major will get the kind of digital skills they're going to need. And with things like ChatGPT out there, every student is using them already, but they don't necessarily know how to use them and how not to use them and so on. So we'll make sure that those skills will be there. So those are some directions. Stay tuned on that. I'm going to kind of wind down here in a minute. I want to tell you about our freedom of expression activity, and I've got a video that's a couple minutes long. But it's something I'm very proud of. So we've been working for the last year and a half on a freedom of expression activity on campus. And given all of the vitriolic political discourse at the nationwide level right now, I thought it would be good to make sure we take it on as a university campus. We should be that place that everybody can express their opinions or their ideas, and they should be respected. And turns out the First Amendment gives a lot of latitude in what's allowed, and it doesn't have to be that place. pleasant, and that's part of the idea. It's not always that pleasant in real life. We're going to try to make sure that we do the best we can at respecting people's First Amendment rights on campus, but then also making sure that people understand what it means to actually have a dialogue that's constructive. So we came up with some principles based a little bit on University of Chicago, which is famous for this, but we built in some of the Cowboy Code as well, so it's kind of really feels like a Wyoming set of principles. And then we've had a committee operating for a long time now to figure out what does it mean beyond principles? How do we operationalize it? What do we do? How do we bring speakers to campus? Conservative, liberal, Buddhist, whatever, just from any direction. We want people on campus who talk about different ideas and expose our students to them and make sure that our faculty also understand what are the do's and don'ts in a classroom. We should be teaching material, not necessarily injecting personal opinions into the classroom. And so there's some gray areas there, and we're working through that. But you'll see, I think, a lot of improvements. And speaking of improvements, there's an organization called FIRE that ranks freedom of expression on university campuses and other organizations. And so the rankings just came out, and it's kind of amazing how well we have improved. So we are number 2 in the nation for tolerance for conservative speakers, second only to Michigan Tech. So when people say there's that liberal, crazy, woke university, well, I can say, you know what? We're actually very accepting of conservative values as well as liberal values, and that, in fact, we are formally neutral as an institution. So that's good. It turns out we're 6th out of 249, 6th on measure of tolerance for disruptive conduct, which means we are less likely than most others to have violent protests. We're much more respectful about this, and you've seen this in the last year. A number of university presidents lost their jobs because they had riots and things going out of control on their campus, and they didn't handle them well. And I don't envy them because it's not easy to handle that. But we had respectful discourse even around the October 7th events from last year. We did have some events, but they didn't get out of control, and I'm pleased with that. And here's the last one I'll say. In terms of these rankings, last year we were ranked number 244 out of 249 on student perceptions of whether the administration supports free speech. And this year we jumped all the way up to number 18, so up over 200 spots. And that's like from the bottom to almost the very top in just a year. So and just yesterday, FIRE gave us we've had a red light for almost 2 decades, and now we're yellow. So that's pretty good by their standards. Almost nobody gets green. It turns out if you follow advice from the Federal Office of Civil Rights, you get a yellow. And so we have to, if we're going to be able to receive federal funding for such things and qualify, of course, under Title IX and Title VI requirements and so on. So if you don't mind, I'd like to indulge you and show you a video we made on this. Can we get that up?
Sure.
I was saying earlier, we played this in Casper yesterday and the sound didn't work, so I narrated, so I can't be stopped here. Unless it doesn't play at all. Okay.
At the University of Wyoming, you have a lot of freedom.
I have the freedom to find information on any topic.
I have the freedom to learn and explore.
I have the freedom to discover my passions.
I have the freedom to ask questions.
I have the freedom to change my mind.
Do I have the freedom to cut class and not do my homework?
Well, yes, you have that freedom too, but that would definitely have consequences that you will not like.
I have the freedom to aim higher.
I have the freedom to belong.
The freedom to become greater.
Wyoming is called the Equality State because we have a proud tradition of equal opportunity. UW has been admitting students of all races and genders since its founding in 1886.
That's right. UW's been around since before Thomas Edison invented the motion picture camera and before the Wright brothers flew the first airplane. And all this time, UW has adhered to a set of principles to protect the freedoms of those who study and work here.
So what are these freedoms?
You'll enjoy intellectual freedom to explore any text and to think for yourself. We don't ban any books. We don't put any fences around your mind. You're free to explore any side of a question or cause. Many students have causes that are important to them, and you'll encounter a lot of people with clashing causes. UW is a public institution, which means your First Amendment right protects you from government censorship. Students therefore have the right to free expression under the First Amendment, to share their opinions, and to argue for causes as ordinary citizens, even if their views offend others.
What about visitors to our campus?
The same is true for visitors to our public campus in any public spaces. You will encounter people who disagree with you and advocate for causes that are contradictory to your own on issues that might be super personal to you.
So what's not protected by the First Amendment?
Crimes like fraud or threats of violence are not constitutionally protected speech. The university is a space for learning and sharing ideas and will not penalize a student or instructor simply because you find their view offensive. In fact, the university takes a principled stance of institutional neutrality on the social and political issues of the day. For these reasons, you'll rarely, if ever, see the leaders of the university take a position on controversial issues.
So what you're saying is that they don't care about important social issues?
It's not because they don't care. It's because they want you and individual faculty to feel free to examine and discuss the issues, not to tell you how to think about them.
Do students and professors have the right to push their causes in class?
Not really. In university classes, you'll learn with experts in their disciplines who are on a quest for knowledge, not on a mission to push a cause. This academic pursuit requires freedom from the political battles beyond our university. This freedom for scholars to teach their subject and disseminate the results of their research is called academic freedom. A college class might examine a controversial or political issue. No subject is off limits. But here, you can expect to be engaging in academic inquiry and analysis, not activism. It takes courage and confidence to embrace this open atmosphere. Welcome to the University of Wyoming. What will you do with your freedom?
Connect with others with a sense of civic grace and friendship.
Build bridges, not burn them down.
We can question rather than censor.
We can engage in dialogue, not diatribe.
We can apply curiosity and evidence to complex issues.
I don't expect the university to take up my causes, but I do expect them to let me have my own.
I can respect the freedoms of others. Learn and let learn.
Thank you. So, yeah, thanks for listening to that. I think it's resonating. I have an anecdote that's pretty cool. I met someone in Alpine who had just dropped their daughter off at Vanderbilt University in August, and they met the chancellor of the university, who was talking about their great work on freedom of expression on campus. And he went on for a while, and then he said, there are only 5 universities in the country that are doing this well. And he mentioned University of Chicago, Vanderbilt, a couple of others, and University of Wyoming. And then they were like astonished, like, is this really true? Are you doing this? Like, yeah, we really are. So I hope it's something that helps us gain a national reputation, as well as maybe attract some more students as well. So if it's okay, I'll just finish up with a couple of miscellaneous points just to kind of round it out. I won't go into much detail. Last year, we reached a big milestone for the university. We had $150 million in research expenditures. That includes NSF funding, DOE funding, corporate sponsorships for projects, and so on. So that's a significant increase, and I think it's due in part to our new Vice President for Research and Economic Development, Parag Chitnis. He's just terrific, and he's helping support this. And you'll see more of that, I think, as, for example, Tier 1 engineering grows and the School of Computing begins to continue to flourish. So that's happening. It includes, interestingly, a new project from the National Science Foundation called the Colorado-Wyoming Engine. So it's up to $160 million over 10 years to multiple institutions, so we get a fraction of that. But it connects University of Colorado, Colorado State University of Wyoming, and a number of other institutions. In order to develop technologies and to commercialize them, it has to have commercialization aspects with venture capital and so on to create new companies around things like fire management, water management, things that we're facing as the climate changes. So that's just one example. We have another much smaller grant that's just to the university on accelerating research translation. So people do research, then they publish papers, and that's the old model, but now they should take the next step if there's some value there to see if you can commercialize it and create economic value from it. So we have a $5 million grant to help give us a shot in the arm and staff for that. The foundation, University of Wyoming Foundation, has had 2 great years in a row, over $60 million in gifts to the university, which is the first time they've ever had 2 successive years like that. And so we are working to propose a comprehensive campaign to the trustees. We expect to be able to do that maybe in the spring semester sometime. I'm not exactly sure when yet, but we've been building for 2 years for this, so it's a very long planning cycle. We want to make sure that we're fully ready to do it before we announce we have a campaign with a figure, that I won't mention a figure here, but a large amount of money that we would hope to raise over, say, 8 years or something like that. We have, around the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, you've all followed that, I'm sure. We last year were, by the legislature, required to close the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion on, at least on public funds. You will have met, many of you, Zebediah Hall, who was our vice president, and I think, you know, we all miss him very much. He's doing well. He's a vice president for, it's similar, I forgot the title, but it's something equivalent to Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Salisbury University in Maryland. Just texted him a couple days ago. We're still good friends, and he's doing well. In that place, we have gone through all of our regulations and policies. We had to define what DEI actually meant, and so in a nutshell, at least in our definition of it, it means advancing one group over another based on race or gender or other qualities. And so we're not doing that. It means there's some changes, but we're making sure that we can do everything possible to have not only welcoming for everybody in our community, but to make sure that there are support services for them. And we're working on it still. So frankly, it's been we had to do a lot in a very short time. So I've had a number of comments from faculty, staff, students, and I've discussed with the trustees. So the documents we've come out, they're a work in progress, and so we'll make sure we don't overshoot, and at least you know, in the fullness of time, we'll do the best we can with that. So I think we're doing pretty well with it, in spite of the fact that there are some hiccups there. The last 2 topics, I'll just throw them out there. Firearms on campus. You know, we've been asked by the governor when he vetoed the firearm bill last year to please look at the policies, not just University of Wyoming, but all state agencies. We had a public comment period at the last Board of Trustees meeting. We had a survey, very strong feedback from campus student, staff, and faculty. I would say generally the strongest signal was they don't want any changes in our policies right now. We will see where that goes. We'll be having more discussion with the trustees, so I don't have anything to announce there, but that's where we are with that. Construction. I think the campus is looking better and better. I don't know if you've been around, but go see the dorms. And you have to go up to them, by the way, because 15th Street, as we heard, is closed, but wow, it's going to be fabulous. And they're already, you can see the inside already. It's coming together. Law school, of course, the science initiative last year was finished, and other west stands of the stadiums, the one half was done, the other half will be done starting after the last game here. So the place is looking good. It's going to be better and better, and I appreciate all your cooperation on the flow of traffic around the campus there as well. So that's, I think, the last point I wanted to make, except to say thank you for listening to me go on and on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilors, commissioners, do you have any questions for the president? Sir Doherty, please.
Thank you, President Seidel. We had YDOT here recently going over projects, and in our own departments with engineering, learning that there's a real bottleneck of civil engineers. There aren't enough civil engineers, and it seems like the university's shifting towards like petroleum engineering, stuff like that. That's great, I guess, but every day we need engineers, we need civil engineers, we need people to help with our infrastructure. So there's infrastructure money, and I know that engineering firms have a hard time hiring enough people to be professional engineers. So I was hoping the university would try to help WYDOT and all of our cities and counties by helping us get more people trained as engineers. So
I'm happy to answer that. Thank you so much for the question or the comment. Yeah, we're on it. And so this last year was the first year that we were able to begin hiring on the new Tier 1 funds. And I think more than 20 faculty searches were carried out across the college, including in civil. That they have also created a program in the last few years around construction management. That's bursting at the seams. So I think you're going to see enhanced capacity to expand the student base in every department there, and it's going to be happening over the next couple years.
What we heard about the construction management is that it's probably squeezing the civil engineering because that's an easier route to take than becoming a fully qualified engineer. So I think it's great to have construction management, but I wonder if there's unintended consequences.
That's the first I've heard that comment. I will take it back. Okay, I will promise. Thanks.
Councillor Gabriel and then Councillor Richardson on the Zoom call.
Thank you, President Seidel. We all appreciate your presentation tonight on traffic. I think all of us are concerned, especially at 22nd and Willett, with upcoming natatorium, right? You're going to have that groundbreaking here shortly. The Upper West Side you talked about. 15th Street is closed, so that generates more traffic at 22nd. It might be a city problem, but I'm wondering, and maybe a question for Bill Mai and our Public Works Director, but I think we need to do something immediately about 22nd.
Okay.
Some kind of temporary traffic signal or something, because that area, have you been there during peak travel times?
I probably haven't. Well, let's see. I just drove here actually right today from there. Anyway, so I'm not disputing what you're saying at all. I'm happy to take that back to
like
Bill.
4:30, 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And now with all this construction upcoming, I'm just concerned about what we can do to mitigate some of those, that traffic congestion.
Happy to take it back to Bill, and in fact, and just to meet with the appropriate people here.
That would be great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Richardson, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate you sharing those enrollment numbers. I'm also kind of interested in, the Wyoming's brain drain. And I'm curious if UW has put out any sort of alumni survey to learn why people are leaving the state, and if that's something, if you have done, if that information, if you can tell us where that information lives, and if not, if that's something that you all have considered.
Yeah, Councillor, thanks. I appreciate the question. Let me wind up to the answer in a second. I don't know if a survey's been done. I'll just come to that. But I have been talking with the Alumni Association a lot about the issue of doing things to see what we could do to understand some of the issues. So sometimes students leave and they come back after a few years. I don't even have the data on exactly what the fraction is who come back. I do know that more than 70% of those who graduate from the university end up leaving the state within some short period after graduation because of job opportunities. So we're very aware of it, and we're thinking about ways to address it. We're actually talking about even what you might even call it like a repatriation program, which is to have events, and I've talked to the board of the Alumni Association about this exactly, but for example, to have events on the campus or in the state that bring alums back. So it's often, like for example, in December, I'm actually leading an alumni trip to Germany because I lived there for 7 years, and I can kind of show them almost, a bit of like almost my hometown. I lived there for long enough to feel comfortable there. So we'll do that. But
and that's great to build loyalty and so on with alums, but we'd like to think about ways to bring them back to the state and say, hey, you know what, don't forget what a great experience you had here either at the university or growing up, and see what the opportunities are. But more than that, this idea of the internships for every student, we're working with the Business Alliance, the Wyoming Business Council, so I meet with Josh Durrell and Rennie McKay frequently at the Wyoming Business, the Governor of Business Forum coming up next month on campus, the third year in a row. We're going to have a special panel on that, and we're going to work very hard with Wyoming-based companies. They don't have to be big companies. I love to tell this story. In Cody on Main Street, there's a little business there called Seidel's Saddlery, and it caught my eye, you can imagine. And I went and visited with them, and they make the best saddles, I think, in the world. They're so proud of it, and they would love to have some student interns to sort of help keep that whole business going. And so the point is, there's just lots of opportunity if we organize ourselves to provide more job possibilities for students to stay in Wyoming. So that's another thing we're doing. Supporting entrepreneurship is another way of doing it, create the machinery for them to create their businesses and so on. So, but to your point, I think the basic point is that the job opportunities have been outside the state, but I don't know the actual answer, so I'll come back to you with that. I'll go to the Alumni Association, see what they say.
Thank you, Councillor. Other questions, Councillor, Commissioners? Yeah, please, Chairman Gosar.
Yeah, thank you, President Seidel. I appreciate it. And thanks to the university. I get a chance in my day job to work with some of the most amazing students who are quite capable and have been remarkable in their ability to deliver health care to those at the margins. So I want to preface with that. I was driving in Colorado yesterday, and they are touting an 8% enrollment increase at CSU. Not so very different than Wyoming. I wonder, and maybe you have some thoughts about recent occurrences causing their enrollment to spike while ours does not. And then I'll just follow up with you after that, if that's all right.
Sure. Well, I'll say, first of all, I hadn't heard that statistic, but okay, that's good for them, and I think that I really do appreciate that. I mean, we do have different dynamics. We have a very strong set of transfers from Wyoming community colleges to the university. As I said, I think 40% of our students, not entirely 40% are transfers, but the bulk of them come from Wyoming community colleges. So there's a particular dynamic in the state. Our out-of-state students are down somewhat, and I think that's something we're watching. I'll say we worked very hard to advertise last year, so we got some additional funds from the trustees to increase very targeted marketing and to talk about the university, and specifically by places in other states that where we know we're, well, also within Wyoming, but other states, Colorado, Texas, California, Illinois are big feeders to the university, and our applications were up nearly 20%, and so that was good. So it's not like people are not thinking about the university, but we weren't able to close the deal. So and then about, I don't know, I forgot the numbers now, but roughly 100 students had actually enrolled and paid deposits and didn't show up at the last minute. So we're a little puzzled by it, and we're trying to understand what are the factors that go into it, and we'll actually be having a discussion with the Board of Trustees that try to diagnose, you know, program by program, just after they've applied, what happened that didn't have us close the deal to have them actually come. And so I think there are a lot of possibilities, and I know what you're getting at about sort of how does Wyoming look from out-of-state perspective. We're trying to combat that. And for example, I think the freedom of expression activity and the idea of internships for every student, I think those will be quite attractive to students all across the country. There's a lot of evidence lately that students are really talented students are turning their back on the Ivy League and other universities in the Northeast because of their perceived sort of political orientation, and so schools in the South are doing very well, and we're going to try to say, hey, we're here too, and so we have a lot of great things to offer you, and we're not expensive. I don't like to lead with being cheap because it sounds like, you get what you pay for. I want to lead with how great we are, and we're inexpensive, and to make sure we sharpen up our value proposition. But I don't know how much of the sort of political aspects that how Wyoming might be perceived are really impacting that last bit of ability to close the deal. We're looking at it. I just don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, President Seidel. I think as I listen to the video, I am grateful, and in full disclosure, I'm an alum of the University of Wyoming, born and raised in Wyoming. I think about DEI, and I think about how poor people suffer health outcomes that are disastrous at a much larger rate than non-impoverished people. I feel that, and the statistics are pretty well proven, that zip code determines your outcomes more than genetic code, and we know what that means. And so when we don't deal with the realities of the world, and we say everybody has the same shot, that's not true, right? Because if it was true, we'd have more than one female governor in Wyoming in the history of this state, right? 50% of the people are female. I struggle because I think you send the university, not you, the state sends the wrong message.
Yeah.
That truly, if you are convicted of a crime and you have non-white skin, that you'll have the exact same outcomes in our justice system. That's simply not true. And so how do you navigate the realities of the world by not washing them away with the idea that DEI doesn't exist, there's no need for it?
Can I respond to that? Yeah. Right. So I admit I'm troubled by the whole situation that we're in, and you probably all know that I promoted the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion from a director to a vice president, and I believe very much in the goals of how we operated. I think we did get caught up a bit in what the national narrative is on DEI, where people applied what they saw happening at other universities and even admissions policies at Harvard and North Carolina being struck down because of sort of affirmative action approaches. We didn't ever practice those kind of things. So we got sort of hit with a sort of a broad brush, and so we're trying to make sure that we do continue to offer the best services we can. It is more complicated, but I'll just say last Saturday and Friday we had the Latina Youth Conference. You may know of it. Cece Aragon runs that, where she works really hard to recruit Hispanic girls from across the state and start at 5th grade. We've had, over the last years, hundreds and hundreds of students from across Wyoming that have come to the university because of that program. And when they come, because there's been so much work to get them to the sense that they belong here at the university. So they start in 5th grade, but then they stay with them, 6th grade, 7th grade, all the way through when they're ready to come to the university. They have a 95% graduation rate. That's incredible. That's like what Harvard strives for, you know what I mean? It's way above the land-grant average, and so it's an example that just sort of illustrates exactly what you're talking about. So Thursday, Friday, we had a group of 90 students coming in. We had a concert by Gina Chavez. I don't know, I actually didn't know her. She's from Austin, Texas. I've been listening to her ever since Saturday night. I downloaded her music. It's fabulous. But we're trying to say, hey, we have a place for you, and you're not going to feel culturally disconnected because we have a community here that you can jump right into. And so our current stance on the way we support our communities doesn't forbid us from doing things like that. But for that, for example, we're using private funds that allow us to do it. So, and I think that, so we will continue to do what we can within what we think we're allowed to do legally on the campus, and also we'll try to raise more private funds for it. But I'm committed to making sure that everybody that comes to this campus feels like they've got a place and that they've got the support services they need. And it's going to take a little while to kind of readjust from the last year.
Thank you, President Seidel. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, of course, Mr. Chairman. Vice Mayor Cumby.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And along those same lines as Commissioner Gosar, I was invited to attend a process circle that took place where leaders from student organizations on campus that are impacted by the closure of a multicultural resource center and the DEI programs came together to kind of process what was going on. And as a community member, we were asked to bear witness and to give support. These students included not only persons related to gender differences, culture, Native American, Pacific Islander, Latino. And what they were expressing was a profound sense of sadness, of erasure, rejection, isolation, marginalization. It was very moving, and it had a feeling of tragedy. And I'm just curious, you say the DEI is privileging one group over another based on race, gender, and other factors. And I think many of these people feel that they have experienced bias all their lives and multi-generational. My concern after I left there is about the mental health. And I'm very concerned that I saw a sense of hopelessness and really just profound sadness. And I was deeply moved by it. And I'm just wondering, what is the university doing to reach out and to try to address the void and the erasure that these students are feeling?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, I'm very moved by that, and also I'm not unaware of it. In fact, last week, perhaps it was Wednesday, I can't remember, I have an open coffee hour and a half with anyone who comes. And at the Rendezvous Cafe on campus there. I was greeted by perhaps 40 or so people that spent an hour of that hour and a half on this exact topic. And I heard them. I understand the points that you've made, that they made the same points. It is moving. And a couple of things to say to them and to you and to everyone. First of all, student organizations are exempt from any of these rules, and so they're allowed to operate as before, but then they need something to latch on to, other structures to make sure that they're able to really operate and so on. So I'm not saying that everything is the same as it was before, but I did ask them, I said, did you feel well supported, say, last year? And they generally said yes. And I said, so tell me what's different. What are you missing? What's actually missing? And we'll make, and so I promised to meet up with them again. So I kind of gave them a to-do item to go back and think about what services are not available now that were. And just saying, for example, that multicultural affairs is no longer available is not enough, because many of the things within multicultural affairs are still available under a different sort of organizational structure. So I think there's probably some of it is that they're just feeling the despair of the whole programmatic change at the university generally. But then when you drill down, it could be that they're not aware where to go, and we can help them. And there could be things that we got to just say, oh my goodness, we didn't realize that that's no longer available to you. And so we're going to be addressing it. So I promise to go back to them to the best of our ability to address that.
Thank you. Yeah, please, Vice Mayor.
I think you may have hit upon something, and that's that the roadmap has changed, and to be more assertive in getting the new roadmap out there so that they know where to go. And my second question, if I might, there are a number of community members that are very concerned, and I have been to 2 meetings now of probably at least 30, 35 people, and there are considerations of trying to open a space that would be public, nonprofit. And I'm wondering if you're able to share any thoughts on that, if you think that that would be something that would be useful. Do you think that's a useful direction for the community to be considering, or?
I mean, my gut reaction is it sounds like it might be helpful. I don't know. I won't immediately go talk to general counsel on such things. But, you know, to make sure that we understand what the issues might be about how that technically could be supported or what our role would be in it. But I'm totally open to having that discussion.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilors, Commissioners? Yeah, please. Commissioner Barr.
Hi.
Dr. Seidel. I was just to piggyback on the 2 previous questions. I was wondering what the university has in place right now, or if they have plans to put something in place for some of the marginal communities, specifically economically, who are it's not as easy to access going to some of your sports events because of the cost of tickets and all. Is there some program in place right now? And I know I've heard that, you know, it could be as easy as having a food drive night where the families bring in 2 cans of food and get in for to the game, and it serves 2 purposes. Opens this opportunity to those kids, especially in the community, who love sports but never get to see it any higher than their own playing because of the cost, and also serve to help the community with a food drive.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner, I appreciate that. I believe last year I was here, we did have specific discussions on working with ASUW on food drives, made some connections with soup kitchen folks and so on. We supported First Lady Gordon's efforts. In fact, if there's a booth at the homecoming game that we talk a lot about, try to draw attention to food security on campus. And so that's one that I know there's a lot of activity. I don't have a good sense of how much the need is not being met, and so I would like to actually perhaps dig into that a little bit more. We have another thing that we've been doing that speaks a little bit to what you got at about student support, financial support. So it turns out that micro grants to students, say between fall and spring semester, as low as $50 or $100 can make a difference in whether a student wants to come back. And so we've been looking at students who have, for example, not re-registered from the fall to the spring, and call them and ask them, what can we do to help you? And sometimes they're just financial issues. So it speaks a little bit to what you were getting at, but that's been apparently very effective in keeping more students coming back from one semester to the next. So there are things like that we're beginning to do. It fits right in the whole genre of student success, and how do we make sure that includes enrollment and making sure that students have the support they need to come back. If you have any specific thoughts on what we could do better there, I'd love to meet and talk further about it.
President Seidel, I'm actually speaking more to the greater community, the young kids out there, not your student population, but the young kids out there who may never have gone to a football game because they just cannot afford the cost, or a basketball game. That's what I'm speaking more to.
So I kind of misread your question. I'm happy to talk to you just specifically about that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Councilor Newman, please.
Thanks for coming and presenting like always. Usually I've kept pretty quiet because I work at Biotech. So, and you said that you're trying to strengthen your relationship with all the parties. What are you specifically doing with Biotech, if anything, to kind of strengthen that relationship?
Well, as you know, Jim Mathis is a trustee.
I happen to know this. I'm met with him.
And so, and he's getting more and more active on the board, I would just say, as he kind of gets, he's almost a year and a half in now or something like that. He's a terrific advocate for, I think, for the university and for higher education. We've even talked about working together on, specifically on trying to address housing issues, and we think the two institutions together can have a stronger voice than just one alone, so we're interested in doing that. We've had multiple visits of my entire cabinet and other staff over to the Visit WyoTech. I think we probably need to do some more follow-up on that, but we have a number of ideas on things we can do there. He is a marketing genius, as you know. He's gone from, I don't know, what was it, 12 students to 1,200 in a few years. It's like a just unbelievable success story there. He's going to specifically be advising us on marketing and communications around the university, and that, in fact, he is the one who specifically asked for us to come back at the November board meeting to understand where in the funnel of students. A lot of students apply, then if they're interested, then they apply, and then some of them come. It's right down here that we missed a few things, and he wants to dive in there with us. So we're working a lot with him on lots of ideas like that.
Please. My daughter also started going there, so I appreciate you taking some of these questions back and looking more into some of these topics. I will make a comment and take it as you will. Please don't turn into Colorado and get like a Coach Prime just to inflate their numbers, because that's kind of what they're doing, because they saw it beforehand too. So please don't do that.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilor.
I've learned how to be a Wyomingite. I think that's a common kind of comment, yes.
All right, any other questions, folks? Councilor Doherty, sneak one last one in.
I was hoping this is helpful to the public too, and not just me, but the internships, would people get college credit while they're doing internships? Is that how that works?
Yes, it could work like that. It depends on the details, but we are open to that. Depends on whether or not it would be judged if there's an academic component. One of the ideas, so there are a lot of models for how we would do this, and we're looking at all of them. Just to say, we don't have like a one-size-fits-all model right now. It is possible for students to go even during a semester, like say spring semester, and work, and then make sure that courses are available remotely so they don't lose any time towards their degree. Or there could be a model where they go during the summer and they're being paid, so they're not losing any time from their usual academic year. And then there could be things where there are special projects. For example, if a student is working at like Plenty or something like that, and they're a biotech student, there may be things that specifically help count towards their degrees, and there are ways we can do that. They are looking at the experiential learning. It's not yet through the Faculty Senate, but to look at what would constitute a credit towards the requirements of experiential learning. This would be the kind of thing that would count.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Vice Mayor.
I just wanted to make a comment. You and I have had several conversations about your interest in the innovation course and in the value of service learning. And I just wanted to say that Mayor Harrington and I had the opportunity to work with Professor Rothfuss and to suggest housing and to write a problem statement that the students then worked from, and then to attend their final presentation of their project. And I thought it was a valuable effort and a good start, and I'm glad to hear that you're going to continue to develop that. It was really interesting to work with the students and with Professor Rothfuss.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. All right, anyone else? All right. Thank you, President Seidel. Like we do with all work sessions, you're welcome to have a seat unless you have anything else, but we'll turn it over to the public.
Just say thank you all, appreciate it.
We appreciate you taking time to be here. We know you are quite busy, and it's appreciated that you're here.
Thanks.
All right, we'll turn this work session over to the public. If there's any comments, please go ahead and come forward in the room or raise your hand on the Zoom call, please. Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Thank you again. Councilors, commissioners, you guys okay to hop into the third one? Okay, great. All right, we're going to go ahead and open the final work session for the evening, which is the ASUW student or Associated Students update. Sophia Gomelski, welcome back. It's good to see you again.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you all for inviting ASUW and taking the time to listen to us. And I also apologize, I'm losing my voice, so part of why we don't have a presentation, so you don't have to pretend like you can hear me talk for that long. But just to jump into some of the updates that we have and we've been working on, it is a new administration for ASUW, and so for a lot of the executive branch, we're working on a lot of new projects and initiatives. We've also been doing a lot of student outreach at the beginning of the year, including homecoming, and so I think our first outreach event during that homecoming week, we had 1,000 t-shirts to give out, and we ran out within the first hour for the entire week. So I think students are getting kind of an interest in ASUW and what we're doing. Another big thing and big theme for ASUW has been housing and tenants' rights. We had an ad hoc committee last year meet and talk about that and kind of hear student concerns about housing and what issues they were having in the community. And so that's a really big point and something that we're looking to collaborate on and work on finding solutions for that in the future for students and Laramie residents as a whole. So a really big project that we got approved and is actually now currently getting funded at the Senate meeting that's happening right now is we have a shuttle to DIA that we are now going to run for students who would otherwise maybe not be able to get to DIA, or international students who arrive at the airport and have previously had to have professors or, try and coordinate somebody to come bring them to Laramie. But this way we can make coming to our university a more accessible thing for students. And so that's something that we're really, really excited about. The other big thing is that we had, like President Seidel mentioned, a town hall. We had a joint town hall with our president of ASUW as well as President Seidel, and we heard a lot about, students, and we got a chance to learn about UW's vision for the future, which included things like internships and professional development, and that was definitely really important for a lot of people, as well as how UW is planning on getting its brand and its name out on a national level, as well as keeping tuition low, which was some really important themes. Some of the other things that we heard were concerns about the university and their ability to maintain their autonomy and commitment to institutional neutrality, amidst so much political interference, particularly amidst conversations that have been happening at the state legislature, especially, the decisions regarding DEI and the Board of Trustees' decision to their decision to opt out of, seeking private funding to fund that office. Heard a lot of concerns about students just feeling unwelcome at the university and losing their sense of belonging in that way. And so that's a lot of what we've been hearing at the office since May. A lot of other things that we've been hearing have been about the upcoming decision for the Board of Trustees on their decision with concealed carry on campus. We've had a lot of students worried that their freedom of expression might be held back, or they may not be able to express their opinion as freely within a classroom in that sense. But we've also heard a lot of students on kind of both sides of the issue express interest in the subject. We have had a lot of out-of-state students worried about things like that, worried that, it might affect enrollment and retention. On a more positive note, our Director of Wellness has been focusing a lot on planning mental health initiatives and working on how we can support students, especially in these fall and winter months. It's also Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I know that she's been working very hard to plan events and get the word out, on social media and other platforms to really get students involved and aware. And Green Dot Trained, which is a program that we really support at ASUW. We also, as I'm sure many of you know, there are elections coming up, and so we were able to table and get some voters registered during National Voter Registration Day with the county clerk, which was really amazing, and we got to interact with a lot of students eager and ready to vote, some of them for their first time. as I'm sure some of you may have already gotten my email about it, but ASUW is also hosting an event called Cowpokes and Candidates. It's something that we did back in 2022, and it's just a nonpartisan opportunity for candidates in Albany County, but the Wyoming elections, more broadly, to come and speak to students individually and directly and be able to kind of have that interaction and really tell students the importance of voting and promote civic engagement on our campus. So we think that's a really important thing that's happening. I think that just in general, the big ASUW change is we're really looking forward to getting more involved with city council and local policy making and state policy making in the future in this upcoming year. And so that's something that we're really looking forward to. And so if there's any ideas for collaborations, questions, concerns, we are very open to hearing it. And I will definitely make it a point to be at more of the city council meetings moving forward. So thank you all.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here. Council members, commissioners, any questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll turn this work session over to the public. If there's any member of the public that wishes to speak during this work session, go ahead and come forward in the room or raise your hands on the Zoom call. All right, seeing none, I'll close this public comment period and close this work session. Councilors, we have a few items left to get to this evening, but we're going to go ahead and take maybe a 10-minute, 15-minute break and wrap that up in just a second. And thank you, commissioners, other folks from the county, for being here.
very concise and very knowledgeable, and her comments were held till the very end, and it was inspiring. Short and inspiring. Anyway, good meeting, and I'm glad I went.
Thank you, Councillor Shumway, and I know that was a big lift for you all to get there through the night with after a council meeting. So thank you, and we're lucky to have both you and the city manager on that board. Councillor Gabriel, anything on your end?
Has anybody talked about the Heart Ranch tour?
You are.
We took?
No.
Okay.
You're up. Please.
Well, the vice mayor, myself, Councillor Aaron, and Councillor Micah, along with the city manager and the city clerk, and Jay took us out, and we had a fabulous tour of the Heart Ranch. And we saw the old historic buildings out there and the open land, and it was very educational. So we appreciate that tour. Also took in the Laramie Railroad Depot 100-year celebration on Sunday. Saw some amazing model trains and the configuration that they had displayed at the Railroad Depot celebrating 100 years. And it was very, very, very well received. And they did a nice job down there. And tomorrow night we have the rec board meeting.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Pierce?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I attended the emergency management meeting yesterday afternoon. Today's Tuesday, it was Monday afternoon. And we just received in our email, if you get the announcements of activities in the community, they're wanting folks to do a survey. So within your circle of friends and whatever in town, really encourage them to do that survey. I don't think it necessarily has any grant application, but I think it has important value to the entire group just to see what activities and what concerns people in the community may have. And I think it would be great if folks did that survey, because they are really interested in that data. So it's always a great group. I always feel like completely like it's so out of my league to some extent, because you've got, the fire folks and Dan Johnson with all his knowledge related to emergency, then the police chief and the, Aaron Applehans, the sheriff, and then you've got YDOT and the electrical, and, just this whole group of public works type folks there. And I just sit there in awe of their skills and knowledge, and just kind of the sponge in the room to learn various information. So it's an amazing group. The gal who's currently doing the emergency management gig with the county is amazing. So, and they always send us emails, regarding our trainings or potential trainings for anybody. So anyway, that's it. They had tacos for lunch. So they always feed lunch. So whoever gets that committee next time around, you get lunch.
That's not nothing.
Yeah. And they were from Andale Rapido, so they were really good.
That's great. Councilmember O'Doherty, anything for you?
Yeah, I attended the Environmental Advisory Committee meeting, and we talked about, remember, I was trying to get a pilot program for containerized composting, and Mr. Smith and Moen and I forget the other gentleman's name in this, who? Brandon Moen, but the other gentleman that works with him. No. Anyway, from the city manager's office. They are working, trying to do a community-led program on composting, and they want to come up with a name. CORE is what they came up with, and it stands for Community Outreach, Reduction, and Education, and a way to try to involve the community in composting. And then we also talked about characterizing waste and using the city's survey system to try to characterize waste and ask citizens, like what they're throwing out and what they wish they didn't have to throw out and things like that, to ask citizens, regular residents, but also businesses. And so that's one of the things the committee's working on. Thanks.
That's excellent. Thank you for that. Councilors, last thing, we have an agenda to review. And I'll just let you all cruise through it really quickly and see if you have any questions. That's right, yeah.
I have a question on the...
Please.
Sorry. It was the bid rejection. Do we know why?
Yeah, I asked that question because I had the same question. There was I should pull this up to be exact, but the bid was not presented in maybe a specific enough way, so there was some confusion from people submitting, and so to open bids, the council has to first reject the previous bid. So it is just sort of like there was confusion, we're going to do it again, but that's why. Is that clear? I kind of feel like I rambled around there a little bit. Okay, great. Okay, yes, that's right. All right, any other questions, councilors?
Mayor, 9E on consent. Just curious about, are we paying for that traffic signal, or is there a shared cost with YDOT?
Good question. City Manager, do you know?
Mayor, I'll have to run down the detail of this, but my recollection is that the city was paying the cost of that and sharing with the developer. YDOT, I think, did not participate in this because the signal wasn't per se warranted. So I can run down the detail of that, but this is an amendment to the original contract. So.
That was...
Yeah, this is Maverick.
Yeah,
and I can
that's how I
send you
remembered
the
as well.
percentages by email.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Other questions, councilors?
Mr. Mayor, I have a general question. And I was wondering, since we were talking about emergency management a minute ago, is there anything that cities can do to help our neighbors, and our neighbors very far away in a mountain range away? Is there anything that the cities, are helping? Because, people gathering water from Laramie and carrying it to the Appalachians seems like not the best use of resources, but are there things like our expertise or something? I'm just throwing that out there, and so maybe if the city manager could let us know, or the public works, like if there's any way that we can offer help and if it's appropriate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Think on that, city manager. I did learn the other day that not specifically to that issue, but maybe to an issue closer to home, and I don't know that we have firemen on the fire in Sheridan, but at times we do have, our fire department does do some wildland firefighting that is sort of, it's reimbursed back through the government, the federal government, but the finance committee had a conversation about that last week because of some, you see some paychecks that are remarkable because of the work. So we do some of that, but that is not your question. I just thought you'd like to know it. So, yeah. All right, councilors, other questions? Okay. Well, with that, then, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.